Great. So today we're going to be working on the legs. So we're going to be working from the toes and the ankles all the way up to the hips and probably a bit lower back as well, and you can't really help it when you're moving the legs around. So I want you to start today by getting a space around you and beginning to stand with your feet just wider than shoulder width apart. Closing your eyes, taking some deep breaths. And really just noticing your feet. So try to pay attention to where your feet are contacting the ground. Try to pay attention to where your toes are, how many of your toes are contributing to your standing, how many of them are bearing weight. Then pay attention to your heels. Where in your heels are you standing? On the inside of the heels, on the outside of the heels? Where is your weight? Then the mid portion of your foot and the arch. What's happening there? Do you feel like your arch is touching the floor on the inside? Do you feel like your weight is distributed on the outside? Then ask yourself, do I have even weight in both my feet? Is it even left to right? Keep your eyes closed while you investigate what's happening in your feet. Taking out your vision from this exercise allows you to be much more aware of what's going on in the internal state of your body. Okay, now make some small adjustments with your hips. So imagining that your hips and your pelvis are a bowl and you have a ball inside that bowl, and you want to just roll that ball around inside the bowl until it settles on a place that you have even weight on the left and the right foot, and even weight on the front and the back. And when you found that place of even distribution, of centered gravity, I would like you to then bring your toes up and down, lifting your toes off the floor and placing them down again. Starting to engage the muscles, feeling for each toe. So, is your little toe lifting just as much as your big toe? Now, as you press your toes down, I want you to exaggerate that pressure. Lean forwards with your weight and prevent yourself from falling with your toes. So, as you lift up, extending the toes, try and feel all of them extending as much as possible. Leaning your weight forwards as you push your toes down and gently coming onto your toes so that your heels just lift. And just feel how your toes can prevent you from falling forwards, how powerful they are at stopping that forward motion of your body. And begin to increase the rocking in your body now. Start to rock forwards and backwards, stopping yourself from falling over with your toes at the front, feeling the strength in your toes, making sure that all of them are contributing to that gripping. Feeling all of your toes engaging into the ground. Your big toe is the powerhouse of your foot. It's the last point of contact with the ground as you walk and as you run. And if your big toe is not strong or engaged, you will lose power, you will lose speed, you will lose agility. So, focusing now on that big toe and beginning to stand on tiptoes, pressing that big toe down into the floor. Starting to work into the calf. And as you do so, just see if you can pay attention to whether your ankles are falling out to the side, whether they are able to stay completely straight, whether they may be falling into the inside. I see it very rarely, but sometimes it happens. And try to control your ankles. Try to prevent your ankles from flopping outwards as you stand on tiptoes. Keep rocking, so every time you go back onto your feet, you come onto your heels. Starting to actually lift the ball of the foot now, engaging the muscles in the front of the calf. And this is definitely a warm-up for your lower limbs. So, rocking back and forth, really lifting when you're on your heels, standing as high as you can on your tiptoes, keeping that ankles stable rather than allowing them to flop outwards. And we're going to do this for another 20 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nice and high. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Fantastic. Okay, starting to bend the knees now. Feel your knees engaging, shifting your weight gently from left to right, bending into the left leg, then the right leg. And just notice how that feels now, how much awareness you have of your feet as you're bending your knees. How you can really feel the transition of weight from left to right, from front to back. And now separating the feet to just wider than shoulder width apart and beginning to bend the knees a little bit deeper. As you do so, try and force your knees apart so that your knees are riding over the outside of your little toe. If you look down, you should see the whole of your foot. Now, alternate. So when you bend your knees, looking down at your feet, you should see the whole of your foot when you start. And then I want you to bring your knees onto the inside of your big toe so that you can see all of your toes, but your knees are dropping on the inside now. So now, alternating outside, inside, outside, inside. Learning to transition between those two. And feeling how it relates to your arches and your feet. And when you direct the knees outwards, your arches raise, how they collapse as you direct your knees inwards. See if you can work out which is more familiar for you. Okay, another 15 seconds of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good. Standing, shake out your legs. Hopefully you're starting to feel warmed up in the muscles now. Starting from the feet all the way up to the thighs. Now we need to get the glutes involved. Now in order to get the buttock muscles involved, we're going to start with a leg lift. And this is just going to engage the muscles on the very outside of your hips. So I want everyone to place their hands on the outside of their hips. Find your hip bones at the top. Once you've found your hip bones, you should be able to grab them with your whole hand, thumbs facing towards the back. And I want you just to drop down below the hip bone and then try and find the outside of your hips, the actual femurs. So there'll be a difference between the iliac crest, which is up here, which is the high hip bones, and as you go lower, you'll feel the femurs here. Now, in between those 2 points, so right in the squishy bit in between, I want you to place your fingers and hold that area, because these are the muscles we're going to be using. Now, standing with your feet relatively narrow, shifting your weight onto your left leg, and without bending the either knee at all, you're going to lift that right leg off the ground. So hitching in the hips and transferring your weight, doing the same on the other side, and you should feel it on the outside of your hips. Now I know some of you, in order to lift, are bringing your leg forwards. I do not want you to do that. You need to keep your leg parallel with the other one as you lift, so the movement comes from your hips. Okay, and we're going to do this 10 times each side. So shifting up, left leg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Feel how it moves your lower back. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, nice and high, 18, 19, 20, good. Stand back, feet wider than shoulder width. Begin to make circles in your hips. Start to really feel the ends of the range of your hip joints as it stretches on the inside of the thigh, around the hamstrings, around the front of the hips, and begin to make 10 circles. Nice and big. 1, 2, keep it pain-free. 3, feel that stretch. 4, 5, the other way, switch direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. Now, same movement, but without moving your upper body. Bring your feet together so that now shoulder width apart. Bend your knees slightly and move the hips in circle 10 times. This will engage much more the glutes as you go forwards and be much more difficult to coordinate. Okay, 10 circles. 1, 2, 3, do not move your upper body. 4, 5, isolate the pelvis. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 10 the other way. Really warm up those hips. 1, your salsa dancing will thank you for this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and shake it out. Good. So that requires a lot of coordination. It requires a lot of muscle engagement around the hips and into the glutes. So now your legs should be ready for it. We are going to do some squats. So step from left to right, just get your legs moving, bend your knees, make your thighs stretch and contract by bending up, starting to lift your knees up towards your chest, getting those hip flexors engaged, high knees, and then resting and going down. Now we're going to do 10 squats, and we're going to start with the squats nice and wide. So have your feet a good distance wider than shoulder width. The wider you go, the more difficult this is going to get, so choose a level that you feel comfortable with. If you want to get a little bit easier, go narrow, and with these squats, if you're finding they're uncomfortable for your knees, just sit back into them, as if you had a chair that was quite far behind you and you were trying to aim to sit down on it. This is much easier on the knees than just dropping straight down, so choose the kind of squat that's going to be good for you. For those who want to get a little bit more difficulty, go down and go deep with these squats. So go as low as you feel like you can with your legs nice and wide, and we're going to feel a little bit of a stretch on the inside of the thighs with these. So, starting with 10 squats. 1. And when you come up, make sure you use the glutes, driving through the hips. 2, 3, 4, I don't care what you do with your back. 5, we're not carrying weight, so you don't need to keep it straight. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, fantastic. Stepping now, one leg forwards, one leg back. And I don't want you to be too wide with this because we're going to use this as a kind of squat position. Lifting the back heel off the floor, going down to touch the knee, standing back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and if it's too difficult, don't touch the knee. 5. Do what you can this morning. Switch the other side. Back heel off the ground. Nice even stance. Dropping that knee. Standing up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fantastic. Coming back to the center. Just checking the time. Okay, high knees now. Bringing those knees to the chest. And as you bring those knees to the chest, begin to touch your elbows to your knees, if you can. So another 10 seconds of this. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I'm being mean with these seconds. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fantastic. Give your legs a shake. And rest for a moment. Good. So, close your eyes. Pay attention to the inside state of your body. And just check in on how aware you now are of your lower limbs. How much can you feel in your legs as you shift your weight from side to side and front to back? So we're going to have a look in more detail now at your coordination. So we're going to see if we can actually improve the control that you have of the lower limbs, particularly with the ankle and the feet, because they are very, very important and often neglected. So I'm just going to bring you down onto the floor here. So I want you to find a place where you can sit and rest on your hands. So you should be just sitting and finding an even place where you can rest on your hands, where your shoulders are doing very little. So it's difficult for your wrists, you can come up onto your fists or you can lean against something, but your feet want to be out in front of you. So with your feet out in front of you and without using your hips, I do not want to see anybody rolling in the hips inwards and outwards. You're going to try and point your feet together and away from each other. Together and away. So repeating this for another 20 seconds. And each time you repeat it, I want you to try and isolate that movement to your ankle joints. Feeling them inwards and outwards. And the muscles that are responsible for this movement are in the lower front of the calf, down here. And you should start to feel that. Now this is a vital movement if you want to get good at balancing. It is the movement that will control your ankles when you're standing on one leg. I've completely lost count of how many we're doing, but keep going. And it helps if you bring your toes up towards your body. You're dorsiflexing your ankles, bringing them up towards your body, and then beginning to turn them inwards and outwards. If your knees are rolling in and out, you are doing the movement from your hips and not from your feet. Your knees should be completely stationary if you're doing this movement correctly. Okay, another couple of times with each foot. Really try and engage with this inwards and outwards movement, this rolling in and out. It's very, very useful and very important movement to get good at, especially for your balance. Okay, now pointing your toes away and bringing them back towards you. Really feeling the maximum range of your ankles here. And to increase the challenge of this movement a little bit, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to do this movement in isolation of your toes. So you are only moving your ankle joints, and your toes are not extending and they are not flexing in order to help with this movement. My right foot is being quite disobedient today. It's hard for me to use without my toes, this movement. But my left seems to be playing ball. Okay, so slowing it down now. Really listening to when you go slow, how much more aware you can be of what you're doing. And really try and isolate that movement from your toes. Another 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now just the toes. Extending, and if you need to rest your arms anytime, just shake them out. Notice if you have carried any tension in your shoulders while you're doing these movements. Whether you're concentrating so hard on your feet that you've forgotten about the rest of your body. Maybe you've forgotten how to breathe. Take a deep breath. Okay, so now just the toes. Up and down. Up and down. And again, just checking in on whether your ankles are really helping with this movement. Maybe they're rolling in, maybe they're rolling out. Or whether it is isolated to your toes. How is your control of your toes? Do you feel that you can use all of your toes equally? My little toes certainly aren't playing games today. Okay, 5 more of these. Down. 1, up, 2, down, up, 3, down, up, 4, down, up, 5, down, up. Okay, now you're going to do the ankles and the feet together. So what I mean is the ankles and the toes, not the ankles and the feet. It's pretty hard to do your ankles and your feet separately. But lifting the toes and then engaging the ankles. Bringing the toes down and then bringing the ankles down. Lead this movement with your toes, almost like you're doing a little Mexican wave and your toes are initiating that wave and your ankles are continuing it. So up, toes, up, ankles. Far as you can with these. I really want you to get your maximum range. Toes down, ankles down, all the way. Feel the stretch in the front. Toes up, ankles up. Toes down, ankles down. All the way. Stretch it out. Up and down. 5 more of these. Toes up. Toes down. 1. Toes up, ankles up. Toes down, ankles down. 2. Really stretch. 3. 4. And 5. Good. Now the most difficult version. Toes down, ankles up. Toes up, ankles down. Doing the opposite. With your toes and with your ankles. So, as your ankles are pointed away from you, your toes begin to come down as you bring your ankles back up. Curling your toes as you extend your ankles. Extending your toes as you flex your ankles. And repeating this 5 times. 1. Extended toes, pointed ankles. Flex toes, extended ankles. 2. 3, really pull those toes towards you as you push your feet away. 4, 5, 6, well I said 5 didn't I? Well, 6 is happening, that's fine. Okay, shake out your feet. Okay, now bringing your legs up off the ground. Now this is a great movement if you want to get more flexible hamstrings. It is a workout for the front of your hips, that is no doubt. But when you get strong in the front of your hips, your muscles in the back have to switch off in order to allow the muscles at the front to engage and lift your legs. And so by using the muscles at the front, you extend and stretch the muscles at the back. 5 more times each side. Just go as high as you can. And see if you can make little circles as well. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, last one, 5. Shake out your legs, bend them, move your hips from side to side. Just see if you can feel like you're using and moving your legs in the way that they are really enjoying. Roll your feet inwards and outwards, feel those hips, feel those knees. Bend your knees up and down, shake out the legs. Good. Okay, then bring yourself into a kneeling position. So you're gently in this kneel, but you tuck your toes underneath. And just spend a moment stretching out the toes now, with your toes tucked under you against the floor, and pushing with your hands so that you bring your foot, your weight onto the balls of your feet and back down. If this is uncomfortable, then it may be easier to bring your hands higher and closer towards you. So when you feel you're ready, come to standing. Now, while you're in standing, we're going to finish today's session with some gentle balancing movements. Before you do that, I would like you to make sure that you pay attention to where your weight is. Bring yourself back down into the ground. Close your eyes and pay attention to how your feet are contacting the ground. Lift your toes, separate your toes, press them into the ground. Transfer your weight onto your right leg, slightly bend the knee. As you lift, you're going to lift in the movement that we did at the beginning by keeping your knees straight and elevating that hip. So you are using the hip bones to lift that left leg off the ground. That engages the muscle on the outside of your glute, and you should feel that. Keeping those toes engaged with the floor and balancing. Tensing the glute, adjusting the knee, so unlock it slightly, lock it out again. Find the point that you're most stable. Relax the hip and engage the hip again. See if you can feel stability in the muscles around the hips. Pressing your toes into the floor, gripping the floor with your toes, and feeling whether that stabilizes you. Find the weak point in your chain. Is it the heels? Is it the ankles? Is it the knees? Or is it the hips? Bringing your left leg back down, transferring your weight across, lifting up that right leg by using the hip muscles, not just bending the knee. And then, same process. Micro bending the knee. Unlocking it, locking it out again. Finding where is the most stable point for your knee. In the hip, lifting and engaging the buttock, or relaxing it. How much tension do you need in the hip in order to stay stable? In the ankle, gripping the toes, relaxing the toes. How much tension do you need in your foot to be stable? Does it help to relax your entire body? Coming back to standing, transferring your weight over onto that right leg once more, and staying as long as you can with your eyes closed on this right leg. Please don't kick any furniture. Use that internal awareness of your body to stay stable with your eyes closed. Transferring your weight onto your left, keeping your eyes closed, repeating the same thing. Feeling the engagement in your hips, micro bend in your knees, using the ankles, engaging the toes into the floor, finding that point of stability. Whoa. Okay, so that's where we're going to finish today's session. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you very much for joining. I'm here on next Wednesday, and we're going to be starting at 8:30 instead of 9 o'clock. That's going to be the new time, because we're going to be able to get more people before meetings and stuff. So set your alarms for 8:30 next Wednesday morning, and come and join me again then. As usual, I'm going to stick around